The events you're about to see are based on real accounts. To protect the identities of those involved, names and details have been changed. My name is Malcolm. I'm 41 years old and I live in Cleveland, Ohio. What I'm about to tell you happened 6 years ago when I moved into an old house in the suburbs. It was a quiet place, perfect for starting over after my divorce. The house had that charm of bygone decades, with creaky wooden floors and a small, well-kept garden. I wasn't superstitious, nor was I the type to be easily impressed, but what happened there still makes me question everything to this day. When I moved in, I brought only a few boxes and my cat, Jasper. He'd always been a calm, lazy animal. If I let him, he would sleep all day on the couch or bed. But something changed the moment we stepped into the house. He seemed restless, sniffing corners, pacing back and forth. I thought it was just the stress of moving. But after a few hours, he chose a specific spot to lie down, a corner of the living room, right next to the fireplace. And when I say chose, I mean he absolutely insisted on it. In the first few days, I didn't think much of it, but as time went by, I started noticing something strange. Jasper didn't just sleep in that corner. He seemed alert. Sometimes he would suddenly wake up and stare at nothing, like he heard something I couldn't hear. He would get up slowly, sniff the air, and return to lying down, but never completely relaxed. More than once, I woke up in the middle of the night to find him sitting there, wide-eyed, staring at something I couldn't see. One night, while I was watching TV, I noticed that Jasper was unusually agitated. He got up, paced in circles, and meowed softly, almost as if he were trying to warn me about something. Then he just stopped and looked up. I followed his gaze, and I saw the chandelier swaying lightly, as if someone had brushed past it. All the windows were closed. No draft. A chill ran down my spine, but I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. It wasn't until weeks later that I found out what had happened in that house. An elderly neighbor, Mr. Donnelly, stopped to chat with me one day while I was watering the garden. He mentioned that it was good to see someone living in the house again since it had been empty for a few years. I asked about the previous owners, and that's when he told me about a man named Richard Evans. He had lived there for over 30 years, but had passed away, right in the living room, in the exact spot where Jasper slept every night. That sent a chill down my spine. I went back inside, looked at Jasper, and he was there, curled up in the corner, eyes half open, breathing slowly. After that, I started noticing other things, small noises during the night, like the floor creaking under invisible footsteps, the occasional scent of tobacco, even though I never smoked inside the house, and an almost constant feeling that I was never truly alone there. I tried to ignore it. I convinced myself it was just in my head. But what happened that last night made it impossible for me to ever sleep peacefully in that house again. I woke up suddenly, for no apparent reason. The room was dark, with only a small sliver of streetlight coming through the curtain. I felt a weight on the bed, and for a second I thought it was Jasper. But then I looked at the corner of the room. He was sitting there, staring intently at something on the wall. I felt an inexplicable coldness, a pressure on my chest that left me paralyzed. Then I heard it. A low sound, almost a whisper coming from the living room. A dragging sound, as if something was slowly moving across the floor. My heart raced. I closed my eyes, trying to convince myself it was just the old wood in the house. When I opened them again, Jasper was still there, now standing, fur standing on end. I gathered the courage to go into the living room. Each step seemed to echo in the silence of the house. I turned on the light, expecting to find, I don't know, maybe something fallen, a rat or something. But there was nothing. The only sound was my own heart pounding in my chest, but the air felt heavy, as if something was there with me, watching, waiting for me to notice its presence. That night I slept on the couch, near the front door, ready to run if anything strange happened again. Jasper, of course, slept in his usual corner, but this time he was different, more relaxed, as if whatever had been bothering him had finally gone away. After that, the strange things stopped. The scent of tobacco disappeared, the creaks in the wood lessened, and, strangely enough, Jasper started sleeping in other parts of the house. He never went back to that corner. As if something had been resolved. To this day, I don't know what really happened there. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But one thing I do know, Jasper knew. He always knew. And whatever was there seems to have decided it was time to leave. My name is Alden Carter. I'm 37 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon. I've never been the type to believe in supernatural things. I've always considered myself a rational guy, even a skeptic. But something happened to me a few months ago that to this day I can't explain. It has to do with my aquarium. I have a freshwater aquarium in my home office, something I've always found relaxing. It sits on a shelf next to my desk, and I like watching the fish while I work. I have a small school of neon tetras, a pair of guppies, and a glass catfish that rarely leaves behind the rocks. It was always a peaceful environment, but on one particular afternoon, everything changed. It was a regular Tuesday. I was reviewing some documents on my computer when I noticed something strange moving in the aquarium out of the corner of my eye. All the fish were agitated, swimming frantically toward the corners as if they were fleeing from something. I looked closer, expecting to see some kind of disturbance in the water, maybe an issue with the filter, but nothing seemed wrong. Still, the fish were all hiding behind the plants and decorations, which was unusual. I kept watching for a while and noticed that they were reacting as if a shadow was passing over them. But the weird part was that there was nothing. No change in the light, no hand moving, no real shadow. Yet every few minutes, the fish would dart to the corners as if something invisible was moving over them. I started feeling uncomfortable. I thought maybe I was just seeing things, so I decided to test it. I grabbed my phone and started recording. I positioned the camera in a fixed spot and waited. The first few minutes were normal, but then it happened again. Suddenly, all the fish dived to the bottom and stayed there, motionless, glued to the rocks. I watched the recording a few times, and sure enough, they were reacting to something. But what? At that moment, I began to notice something else strange. The air around the aquarium seemed heavy, like the air in that space was denser than the rest of the room. I had never felt anything like that before, but it was as if the space around the aquarium was different from the rest of the room. I moved closer and stood there, watching, trying to understand. Then I felt it, a chill running up my spine. The temperature around the aquarium seemed slightly colder than the rest of the office. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a problem with the lighting, so I turned off the aquarium light to see if that would change anything. But the fish kept acting strange, as if they were still seeing something. The catfish, which almost never moved during the day, was now pressed against the glass as if trying to escape. I decided to test something else. I grabbed a flashlight and shone the light over the aquarium, trying to see if any reflection could be causing this. But there was nothing but the clean glass and the clear water. Then, while I was still holding the flashlight, something happened that really unsettled me. For a split second, I saw a strange reflection in the glass. It wasn't my reflection or the light's reflection. It looked like a shadow, but it disappeared before I could focus on it. My heart raced. I knew I had seen something, but there was no way to prove it. I kept watching, trying to capture the shadow again, but it didn't show up again. However, the fish kept reacting. By this point, I was feeling a slight tingling in the back of my neck, that uncomfortable feeling of being watched. I decided to leave the office and take a break. I went to the living room, turned on the TV, and tried to distract myself. After about 40 minutes, I gathered the courage to go back. When I entered the office, everything seemed normal. The aquarium was calm, the fish swimming as usual. I sighed with relief. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But when I went to turn off my computer, I noticed my phone was still recording. I grabbed the device and went to review the footage. Most of the video showed the fish swimming, then hiding. But then, at one specific moment, I saw something that made me freeze. For a split second, right in the reflection on the glass, there was something there. Something that shouldn't have been. A shadow that wasn't mine, that didn't come from anything in the room. It seemed to move on its own, too fast to be a trick of light. My chest tightened and my immediate instinct was to delete the video. But something inside me couldn't. I needed a second opinion. I sent the video to a friend who knows a bit about editing and asked him to take a look. He replied a few hours later saying he saw something strange, but that it looked like a glitch from video compression. But I know what I saw, and the fish knew too. In the following days, things went back to normal. The fish stopped hiding, the atmosphere seemed lighter. I never saw the shadow again, nor did I feel that strange presence around the aquarium. But every once in a while, when I pass by the office at night and glance at the glass, I still catch myself waiting to see something there, something I probably should never have seen. Hi, my name is Lucas. I live in an old house in Hartford, Connecticut, and this story happened a few months ago, but to this day, I still can't understand what happened. I live here with my wife Claire and our 2 cats, Felix and Maya. We recently bought an antique piece of furniture, a sideboard, which seemed to have something different about it. I don't really know how to explain it, but ever since we brought it into the house, strange things started happening. And the worst part of it all is that it was the cats who started reacting weirdly. I've always been a skeptic about these things, you know. I never believed in superstitions or anything like that, but this sideboard, I don't know. I even feel kind of weird telling this, but I swear it happened. When the sideboard was placed in the living room, the very next day, Felix and Maya started acting in a very strange way. They've always been super calm, but that day, both of them were completely out of sorts. Felix, the calmer of the two, started avoiding the sideboard. He would stay far away, with his fur raised and his eyes locked on the piece of furniture, low growls escaping his mouth, almost like he was warning of something. I even joked with Claire, saying that he must have felt uncomfortable with the new addition to the house, but over time, it just got worse. Maya, our more energetic cat, who was never afraid of anything, also started avoiding the sideboard. She would walk around the house in a more cautious way, almost like she was always trying to stay away from it. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but soon I started noticing a pattern. Every time Felix or Maya passed by the sideboard, they would make that hissing sound and arch their backs, as if they were preparing to attack. And the worst part is that no matter how much I called them, they just wouldn't come near the furniture. I even tried at first to make playful attempts, putting treats near it, but the cats wouldn't go near it. They would sit a few feet away, staring at it with fear in their eyes. Claire, who also never believed in those cats sensing the supernatural stories, began to get worried. She asked me to research on the internet about cats' behavior around old furniture. That's when I found something that made me even more uneasy. Old furniture, especially those over 100 years old, can accumulate something called residual energy. I don't know if this is real or not, but the idea that the sideboard could be carrying something from the past really made me uncomfortable. But the strangest part was still to come. One night I was watching TV in the living room, alone. Claire had gone to bed early, and the cats were, as usual, avoiding the sideboard. I looked at the piece of furniture, and for the first time, something seemed different. The dark wood, which had seemed harmless before, now had a strange glow to it under the room light. And then, suddenly, I heard a muffled sound, like something moving inside the furniture. I froze. The first thing that crossed my mind, that's when he jumped back, hissing and shrinking away as if he had been electrocuted. He ran to the corner of the room, eyes wide and fur standing on end. I was paralyzed. I had never seen Felix act like this. Maya also appeared at the door, looking at the sideboard with a terrified expression, and she ran to my side as if asking for help. That night was the strangest of them all. I couldn't sleep properly, thinking about what had happened. The next day, Claire finally admitted that she also felt something strange about the sideboard. She didn't want to say anything before, because she didn't want to worry me, but the feeling was the same. Something was wrong, and we both knew it. We tried to have the furniture removed from the house, but when we did, the cats, who had already been avoiding the living room, seemed to calm down immediately. Felix went back to being the calm cat he always was, and Maya started playing again, something that hadn't happened since the sideboard arrived. There were no more hisses, no more arched backs, and the atmosphere in the house became much calmer. I won't lie, but since that day, I've never looked at antique furniture the same way. I know that to many people this story may seem silly, but the cats were so scared and the events were so strange that I can't ignore it. I don't know what happened with that sideboard, but since then, my house has never been the same. And the cats? They've never gotten close to antique furniture again, no matter where it is. For them, the lesson was clear. Some objects just shouldn't be brought into the house. My name is Wesley. I'm 34 years old, and I live in a house in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina. This story happened about 3 years ago, and to this day, I still can't understand what happened that afternoon. I'll try to explain it the best way I can, because even now, when I close my eyes and think about that day, I feel more uncomfortable than I did back then. I've never been one to believe in supernatural things. I never was. But what happened to my dog Rex made me start questioning everything I thought I knew about the world. Rex has always been a calm dog. He's medium-sized, golden-colored, and has a laid-back personality, although he's always been a bit reserved around strangers. When we moved into the house where we live now, he adapted well. He liked spending his days on the couch or on the porch, watching what was happening on the street. I never imagined that what happened would happen to him. It was on a Sunday afternoon that everything started. I was alone at home, as usual. Rex always stayed close to me, but that day, he seemed particularly uncomfortable. While I was sitting in the living room watching TV, I noticed that he stood up and stared down the hallway. He was standing still, ears up, as if he was listening to something in the distance. I didn't think much of it. I figured it was just some noise from the street or something from the neighbor's house. But then, something stranger happened. Rex started walking hesitantly toward the hallway where there was a large mirror that my wife had placed there just before I moved in. I never really paid much attention to the mirror. It was just there, on a wall that seemed to serve no real purpose, but that moment, Rex stood in front of it, eyes locked and his fur on his neck bristling. I got up and walked over to him to see what was going on, but before I could get close, he started barking. The barking wasn't normal. It was aggressive, even desperate. He barked as though he were attacking something, but the strange thing was, there was nothing there. No one was in the hallway, nothing out of the ordinary. Just that mirror, reflecting the weak afternoon light. Rex seemed to be absolutely terrified of something there. He barked, then backed away, always facing away from the mirror, as if he was avoiding looking directly at it. And as he backed up, his barking grew louder and more frantic. I tried calling him, but he wouldn't listen. At first, I thought he was just getting scared by his own reflection, but that didn't make sense. Rex had seen mirrors before, and he'd never reacted like this. I stood there for a few minutes watching him, and every time he got closer to the mirror, it seemed like something was pushing him away. He would start to back up again, and his fear only seemed to increase. I'll admit, I started to get uncomfortable. I had never seen Rex like this. He was in full-blown panic mode. I tried to approach him, but every time I got near, he'd back away, still barking and looking at the mirror like something was wrong. I stepped closer to the mirror to see if there was something I was missing, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. The reflection was just the same, the usual room, the couch I had been sitting on before, and of course, Rex in the hallway, barking at what appeared to be thin air. But something about that mirror was clearly messing with him in a way I couldn't explain. The tension in the room kept building. I could feel the air thickening, the silence only broken by Rex's barks. He didn't stop. I then decided to try and move him out of there, taking him to another room. But when I tried to grab his collar, he dodged me, still with his eyes locked on the mirror. He was terrified, and it was so palpable. It was like he knew something was wrong, but he just couldn't understand what. I gave up on trying to control him and walked over to the mirror to look closer. I was curious and worried. When I got closer, I noticed that the light in the room seemed to dim, like something was blocking the light. I don't know if it was just a feeling, but I started to get a chill down my spine. For a moment, it felt like I was being watched, and that was enough for me to take a step back. Rex was now in the corner of the room, crouched down, trembling. He was still staring at the mirror with wide eyes. I was so uncomfortable that I decided to go for a drive to clear my head. I picked up Rex and took him to the car. I drove for about an hour to get away. I couldn't stop thinking about that mirror and what Rex might have been feeling. When I came back home, something still felt off. The mirror was in the same spot, but the atmosphere in the house seemed different. It wasn't the same cozy environment as before. I still couldn't explain what had happened that day. Rex seemed to be back to normal, but something had changed in him. He became more reserved and started avoiding the hallway where the mirror was. Not just the mirror, but the whole hallway seemed to make him uncomfortable. It was like he avoided that part of the house, as if just passing by it caused him distress. Since then, Rex has never been the same. He started avoiding reflections, especially in large mirrors, and became visibly uncomfortable when passing by any reflective surface. I tried searching for answers on the internet, but I never found anything that explained his behavior. Some people said that dogs can react to presences that are invisible, while others mentioned instinctual behaviors, but nothing convinced me entirely. I never told anyone about this. I don't know what happened that day, but I can't forget the fear in Rex's eyes and the feeling that something was wrong. To this day, the mirror is still in the same spot, but I've never approached it the same way again. Maybe I've just come to accept the idea that some things simply don't have an explanation. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like to support the community. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content. See you next time.